Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest today. What an honor. The legendary Harry Basil.
Harry Basil. You made it sound like kind of dirty. Like I have a Harry Basil. And I want to show it to you. Harry Basil. Yeah.
I feel good. I'm going to have a great time with you today. And
well, it's good
we're
to be here,
going
bud.
to inspire a lot of people with your story.
Okay.
Because you have an amazing story. And normally I don't like to do this from the very beginning, but I think it's important in your case because your journey is pretty incredible as a stand-up comedian, as an actor, as a writer, as a director, and as an entrepreneur and club owner. It's fascinating. So I want to go right away, way back, and take us back to where you grew up, the economic dynamic, and what was your first inspiration to getting into this crazy business?
I grew up in Bergen County, New Jersey, in a town called Bergenfield. And my mom and dad had 5 kids. I'm the second oldest. I have a brother and 3 sisters. And we're Greek, from Greek descent, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad left, you know, though the story, a lot of comedians have the story that my dad went out for milk and never came back. Well, that really happened. And he left my mom with 5 kids. So I had to help support the family and everything. The only thing that he did do was introduce me to like Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis and Abbott and Costello and comedy, you know, my father.
He didn't introduce you to them personally. He introduced you to their television
yeah,
programs
like
or their albums.
yeah, like he watched them and said, "Watch these guys; they're funny." And those were early inspirations. Were those type of comedy movies on Sunday that I would watch and act out things. You know, do little plays in the backyard and act out little sketches and stuff. And then once I got into high school and there was drama class,
Who would you act them out with?
just other people. I would produce and put these shows on in the backyard and make these little movies. I started making home movies on Super 8 when I was like maybe 12 years old. You know, little army comedies and then action movies, all silent. And
Were you the only one out of the 5 kids that did this? I'm going to move
Yes.
this down a little.
Yeah. I mean, my oldest sister was a talented artist. My father was a artist. He made his living as a airbrush artist, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was a homemaker and worked in banking, bank manager, teller. No one else really had that urge to like say, "Hey, look at me," you know.
So what's the next step after these silent movies?
So I started making these movies, and then once I went to high school, I found out that there were like classes, like there was filmmaking and art class, and there was a talent show, you know, the variety show, and there were plays, and I had a great drama. We had a great drama teacher. A lot of working actors came out of our high school. Jackie Zeman from One Life to Live, I think. Days of Our Lives. She was, and Tom, who was the other guy? Tom Riley was on Chips. He replaced Larry Wilcox on Chips. So we're like a lot of people that still pursued it because he was such a good drama teacher and prepared you for the crazy industry. But yeah, that was my outlet. I loved high school, loved making movies and entering them in film contests. I won an award, New Jersey Institute of Technology, for a Jaws spoof that I made in like 1980 with a shark with wheels. It was like a land shark. And Otto Preminger presented me with the award, which was really pretty cool. And I think I got like $200 and a plaque.
How old were you?
I was 18, 19, and got my picture in the local paper. Film student with Otto Preminger. He was kind of looking at me like, "Who's this guy?"
So what's the next step after that?
I knew I wanted to go out to Hollywood. So I just worked as a waiter, saved money, took acting classes in New York, kept making movies, made a vampire movie, Count Meshuggah, with all my Jewish friends. I loved Mel Brooks.
A talking picture.
No, silent. These were silent movies. These were silent movies. Little
How long was
short.
how long was the Count Meshuggah?
Count Meshuggah was about maybe 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. And it was in black and white. And I developed the film in my bathroom in a bag. So it was real, like, filmmaking. When I saw Spielberg's Fabelmans, that reminded me a lot of my childhood. I mean, my parents were divorced. I wound up making movies because my dad, which I was never allowed to touch the video camera. I was, I think I was 16. So like 76,
And
77.
who were you living with?
I was living with my mom. He would come and go out of our lives. And I was never allowed to touch the movie camera. But when he left, I was like, all right, it's mine now. So I still have it. It's a square Kodak, no zoom lens on it or anything. But that's what I made my first movie with. And so, here I was saving money. And I knew I wanted to go to Hollywood. But I was still making movies with my friends. And just because I wanted that outlet. And then went out to Hollywood and became a waiter.
You go out to Hollywood at how old?
I was 21. I wanted to wait until I was 21 so I could either work as a bartender or a server. Because I was born in 1960, and it came right in under where I could still drink legally at 18 years old. But they changed the law to 21. So I could serve and drink alcohol in New Jersey. But coming out to California, I had to be 21. So I waited until I was 21. So that was 1981.
So what's your plan?
Came out. A friend of mine who I came out with, his aunt and uncle lived in the Valley. So we went to North Hollywood. And I knew nothing about Hollywood or coming over on this side of the hill. Just started to learn all of that.
But did you have a plan?
No, not really. Just had about
$1,000.
Had about $1,000. Got an apartment and said I want to be an actor.
You wanted to be an actor.
Yes,
so that was the plan.
Didn't even think about being a stand-up comic or knew anything about stand-up comedy. Only knew what I saw on the Tonight Show. Joey Bishop, Rodney Dangerfield, those old school guys. I didn't even know about comedy clubs.
Now,
and the young guys
out of all the comics you watched on the Tonight Show, was Rodney your favorite at the time? When
Rodney
you were 18?
was one of my favorites, and I worked at a country club right before I moved out here. So we loved the movie Caddyshack. It was 1980, and that was really big, and everybody was like, hey, would somebody step on a duck, or whatever, doing lines from the movie. That movie was really popular.
Awesome. So you're in L.A. It's 1980. What's
81, 82, 81. I think.
What's the next step in your
I got a
career?
job at the Sheraton Universal as a waiter.
Okay.
And, there were actors there, movie stars. I was waiting on Mr. T. Came up to me. I want cantaloupe, 2 halves, blueberries in them. That was one of my big guys that I waited on. And Telly Savalas' mom, and when they found out I was Greek, she always wanted me to be her server. She actually lived in the coffee shop. It was like weird. You go in the coffee shop at the Sheraton, and there would be this table, and it looked like a bunch of gypsies, but it was a bunch of old Greek women that were sitting at this little table. And every once in a while, Telly would come by because he was under contract with Universal because of Kojak. And so he lived in the hotel, and so did his mom. And and met other people that were actors, and somebody wanted to be a singer, somebody wanted to be a writer. And
what was your first break?
Well, one day I had a friend that was visiting from New Jersey, and I said, I'm broke. What can I do? Where can I take him? They said, go to the Comedy Store on Monday night. It's free to get in. You see amateurs, and then after the amateurs are done in the OR, you get to see the paid regulars.
The OR, for those of you who don't know, the original room.
Yeah. So I did that, and we went, and we got there early and found out it was a 2-drink minimum, which wasn't bad. And we saw these horrible comics going on first. And then it started to see Louis Anderson, Andrew Dice Clay, Jim Carrey, a lot of the guys that called in for spots. And I saw guys doing acts with music and props, which I had never seen that before. You don't see that on the Tonight Show. And so I saw Jim Carrey doing impressions. I saw Dice doing Al Pacino and De Niro doing his De Niro and stuff like that. And I could always do impressions ever since I was a kid. I was like a class clown in high school. So I was like, my God, I could do something like this. So the next week, I kind of came back with an act and put this little act together.
You stood in line for the Monday
Yeah.
potluck, the
Yeah.
3-minute open mic.
Yes.
And you got picked right away? Or?
I think it was Robert Aguayo who saw me. For some reason, I decided to spoof Raiders of the Lost Ark, okay? So I had this leather jacket, and I sewed spiders on the back, and I had a whip and the hat, and then I got a big garbage bag, brown garbage bag, and filled it up with air and had it like chase me like a boulder, and I was just humming the music, right? And it was just really silly and sophomoric. But he was like, hey, you're pretty funny. I'm gonna tell Mitzi about you. You're gonna showcase for Mitzi. And I'm like,
that was the first time you ever went on stage.
Yeah. And so so
you did a 3-minute piece on Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And I think
like
I did
parody.
And I think I did a Scarface impression too. With a bag of flour, like "F you," cockroach or whatever.
Now I'm just curious. On your first time, like you saw comedians using music and props. Why didn't you hand the guy the video? Or why
I never
tape
owned.
recorder?
Okay, I wasn't into music as a kid. We had a stereo, but the needle was always broken, and we never got it fixed. So I wasn't into music. I didn't have albums. I never went to a record store. I liked movie posters. I used to go buy movie posters, and I have some old rare movie posters that I bought when I was a kid with my paper out money and stuff like that. But I wasn't into music, so I wouldn't even know that there are soundtracks that exist out there until I became Mitzi's runner. Okay.
Well, let's
which I will eventually get to.
Keep going here. So
So
they have you come back.
They have me come back the week later.
And is it on a Monday?
It's a Monday night.
Is she sitting in that
She's
historic
sitting in the
chair,
back.
that chair
I remember it was
the hallway?
Yeah, it was myself, Tamayo Atsuki, and a comic from Boston named Chris Carter, who was an impressionist. And I remember it because the three of us became paid regulars that night. Chris Collins, that's it. Oh yeah, you're from Boston.
Yes.
He kind of looked like Gene Hackman and sweat a lot.
Yes.
I think he, had some drug problems. But anyway, I was a Boy Scout. That's a whole other story. I never did anything in my life.
So you're doing impressions.
I'm doing impressions, doing Al Pacino.
Who goes first of the three of you?
Yeah, I do Jerry Lewis.
Are you going before Chris Collins?
I think so, yeah. I think I went on earlier.
Okay, you did a whole different act.
I added Jerry Lewis singing.
Well, how could you add? You got 3 minutes.
They were quick bits. You know what I mean? The Indiana Jones thing was just an opening. You know what I mean? It was really silly. I had this rubber hand with a gun on it, and I set it on a stool. I got my back. I'm looking at the map like at the beginning of the movie, and I realized something, and then I whipped the gun out of the hand, and it was so silly. I was like, who am I? You know what I mean? And dun 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 dun, dun, right? And then I went into another movie. I forgot what the other movie is that I went into, but it was just really silly stuff. But Mitzi liked variety, and she liked silly things like that. I did great. It was so silly. And
what normally happens, you walk off and you end up walking past her in that chair. Did she stop you?
She stopped me. And this was the weird thing. I bought this vintage Wyatt Earp suit, which I never wore again, but it was really cool looking, like Wyatt Earp would wear, or Maverick. She's like, oh, you're the guy with the Maverick suit. She always remembered clothes. Oh, you're a sweater comic. She would say to like George Miller, okay, I'll wear a sweater, or you should wear blue. You got a blue aura. So she stopped me and said, you could be a paid regular. I'm going to put you in Westwood, right?
Your second time on stage.
Yeah. So what was it, like $15? I still have my first check for $15 in Westwood.
So she booked you your third gig, a paid gig in the Westwood Club.
Yeah, so now I'm going out to Westwood.
Who's on that show?
Oh, God, there were like Jonah Pody, who's like one of my best friends. Frasier might have been out there.
Frasier Smith?
Yeah, Frasier might have been out there. I forgot who else. But I needed money. I needed a job, so I got a job as a doorman.
What's the $15 going to do for you?
No, but I was a doorman, so I got $25 for that. And then I was the runner, and I got to drive. I said I knew how to drive stick, and I didn't. And it was this red pickup truck that I think was Mike Binder's, and I think before that it was David Letterman's, okay? And it had the Comedy Store on the side. So now I'm the runner, and I'm making $25 as a doorman in Hollywood. And then I would ride my scooter My car died, so I bought a Passport scooter. So my prop bag was only this big that could fit on the back. So, it wasn't until I got a car that the act grew, right? Because I could only fit this bag. And so I'm doing spots. I'm creating the act out there. And then Mitzi wanted me to go to Tower Records to get a Barbara Streisand album, okay? And the famous, Tower Records.
This was the
Sunset.
famous Tower Records on Sunset, which isn't there anymore.
Yeah, and I used to go to Rexall Drugs to get her cigarettes. She would want a smoothie from some other place down the street. As I had to go pick up the silent movie that they played on Mondays, over on Little Santa Monica and like Franklin or something like that. There were all these little places that I wound up going to, and they always pop in my head like, oh, I remember when I was a runner, I went and did that. Anyway, so I'm getting Mitzi's album, and I walk past the soundtrack section, which I had never seen before. And I see all of these movies, soundtracks. I see Jaws. I see Superman. I see Rocky, Flashdance. And it was like that shot in Jaws where Roy Scheider, sees the kid getting eaten. It's called a zolly, where the camera pushes in and pulls back at the same time. And I just started grabbing all of these albums. And I started writing the act in my head. And my friend, who was my best friend, Laura, who's my wife now, we kind of had a When Harry Met Sally relationship. She had a stereo with a little cassette thing next to it, so you can play a record and hit record, and then pause. So I would go, all right, I'm going to open with James Bond, right? And I'm going to come on stage with the tuxedo and do the thing and turn and shoot. And then it's going to go into another movie, and I'm going to take off my clothes, and it's going to be Superman. And I'm going to grab a lady out of the audience and make her lay on a stool. You know what I mean? We're going to fly. You know what I mean? And then, then it'll go into Deliverance, right? And her butt is like, and I'll stand up and go, oh no, like that. And I just started adding movies like that, right? So I started doing this act out in Westwood with music, and now it's killing, right?
And I presume they have to have you close because nobody's going to
Well, nobody knows what I'm doing yet. Mitzi doesn't know what I'm doing. She hasn't seen my act. She hasn't seen the
other
act.
Comics are like grandmothers. They
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah. And
I'm sure Letterman doesn't want to follow.
Well,
that.
he wasn't there. He was a star. You know what I mean? My big brothers were Dice and Louis Anderson. You know what I mean? And Bob Saget. Those were the guys that were older than me who would see something and give me a note. Like Bob. Every time I get to this line from Scarface, I do Scarface sings the best of Billy Joel. And I'm singing, it's 9 o'clock on a fucking Saturday, and the regular fucking crowd shuffles in. There's an old fucking man sitting next to me, fucking his tonic engine. So Saget gave me, and it's sad and it's sweet, and I knew it complete when I didn't have this shit up my nose. So he gave me a punchline to that. And every time I get to that punchline, Bob Saget pops into my head. Or, when a comic gives you a tag or something like that. So I'm writing these bits. I'm like going, oh, now I'm going to close with Flashdance and take off my shirt. And I had the shirt that Jennifer Beals wore with a bra on, and I'm taking the bra on under my shirt. And then it goes into Maniac, and I'm, doing the whole thing like this. And I dump water on my head. I'm recreating the movies. This is basically what I'm doing. And I was inspired, like I said, by Jim Carrey, because I saw him do something from Rocky Horror Picture Show or do Elvis or whatnot. So I'm adding all these things in. So I'm over there, I'm building the act, I'm getting spots. Somebody tells Mitzi that I'm killing, haven't really gone on in front of her. She's given me a couple of OR spots, haven't gone on in front of her. And then I come up with this ending where it goes from Flashdance into Rocky. And I made these Rocky trunks and sewed stripes and stars on these gym shorts, and I had a steak. I would punch the meat, and then I crack the egg, and I drink the egg, and I thought I was going to swallow it, but I spit it back into the glass and got a big laugh. And then I pulled up a guy to be Mr. T and a woman to be Adrian. At the end, it's the final music. Mr. T and I both fall down. I'm like, Adrian, and the music is playing, da 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 da, and then she comes up, Rocky, and she puts the flag over my shoulder, and I'm telling them what to do, right? And then she goes, I love you, Rocky, and I go, I love you, and I go like this. da 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 da. The end of the movie, and everybody stands up. I get a standing ovation.
Standing
right?
ovation,
Yeah.
which the audience should know that a standing ovation in a traditionally white comedy club is unheard of.
And this is, again, this sounds really corny and stupid, you know what I mean? But this was the 80s, and all of these movies were really big, and Mitzi loved this. So Westwood closes, okay? And I'm still the runner, and I'm cleaning up Westwood. There's all these bottles on the roof from Sam Kennison finishing a drink and just throwing it like a hand grenade on the roof. There's literally this much glass up there, okay? And I'm scraping gum off the tables and doing all this shit for $25 a day. And now she's got to give spots to guys that were in Westwood. Just like, there's a lot of guys that get spots in Long Beach Laugh Factory, but maybe they don't get Hollywood all the time. But they're happy because it's a great club and, it's a paid gig. It's a further drive. So there were a lot of guys that were just Westwood guys, and I was one of them. But I built the act. So now I'm going on a Saturday night late in the OR, and I keep getting pushed because Rodney Dangerfield goes on, and then Robin Williams goes on, and then Richard Pryor goes on, and now is my spot.
And how many people are left in the
crowd? And there's maybe like 50, 60 people still in the club.
It's still a lot.
And yeah, and Mitzi's still in the back. And I do the act with the music, the Superman. She saw the Indiana Jones thing, but now she sees the act and she sees the ending with Rocky. And I get a standing ovation following those guys. And I get off stage and I'm all wet. And again, I was adorable and cute and, 160 pounds in shape. She grabs me and goes, "You're not the fucking runner anymore. You're a fucking headliner," right? So she was like, oh my God, right? And granted, there were guys. There was Mule Deer and Denny Johnson, and then Lenny Schultz, who I met later on,
which was the hardest person for Robin Williams to follow.
Yeah. Who? But I had never seen Lenny, but he did Rocky in his act, and he was like, I fucking punch into the audience. I met him years later. So that weekend, I was in both shows in the OR and both shows in the main room.
The 400 seat.
And I knew I was going to do 2 shows, so I had 4 eggs in my bag. I always had like an extra egg.
Did she have you close?
in case my egg broke, or I had to run out.
Close in the main room?
She had me close in the main room too. She had me go, and everyone was like.
Which, for those of you who don't know, it sounds like it's wonderful, but back then it was what's called the check spot, and the checks would be put down by the waitresses, right as the headliner goes on.
Yeah.
And so people are looking at checks, they're collecting money. It's a very distracting, tough spot a lot of times. The spot before the closing spot, it doesn't make sense normally because they don't do it anymore like that. But it's a tough spot.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because now as a club owner, I know about that, but I didn't think about it as much because I broke the wall. A lot of my act, I was standing on chairs and tables out in the middle of the room, so I'd be on stage and in the audience because I broke that wall. I would bring like 3 to 4 people on stage in my show. So now I'm like making money, because she split the door with you in the main room. The other spots were like $25.
I believe. Did she get 50%, and then
she gave 50% to 5 comics? Yeah,
and then she kept the other 50.
Yeah, so you could make $400 for one show, if it was sold out. So if I had both shows, I could stay in town and make $800 to like $1,200. So she paid me more in the main room than I made in La Jolla. La Jolla, I was only getting $800 for the whole weekend. I like going to La Jolla, but the money wasn't as great. It was great being in Hollywood, and then I rarely did the OR. It was like once I was a main room act, she always put me in the main room, and a lot of times I would close, And
The one thing I've learned more than anything else, if you're undeniable, you cannot be denied. There is no one out there that has the experience that I have in the entertainment business. Throughout my career, I've been humbled to work with over 25 of the most extraordinary comedy entertainers in the world. One time, a fluke, but 25 times, it's crazy. I'm here to help you create holy shit moments that will blow people the fuck away. You want to do a 5-minute set for late night? I can help you. You want to produce your feature film? I can make it happen. You want to shoot your hour special? Done. You want to do a documentary with Emmy award-winning producers? I can make it happen. It doesn't matter what you want to do. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And this is your opportunity.
Now, did Rodney, when Rodney and Pryor and Robin Williams,
they were gone.
So
They were out.
They didn't see you.
They didn't see me. No.
So when's the first time somebody who was a megastar hung around and just was in the side and was like, "Who the f is that guy?" and saw you? Who was the first act that, and what did they say to you?
Well, Robin followed me in the main room a lot, and my props were on stage because I thought the show's going to be over. They'd clear out the audience, and then I could just pick up my shit and either get it ready for another show. But a lot of times I would leave everything on stage and then go through the curtain thinking like Argus is going to come back out and go, Harry Basil. And
Argus
that's it,
Hamilton.
right? Or Paul Mooney, when he would follow me, he would go, "Oh, the white hootenanny is over, ladies and gentlemen. The white hootenanny is over." So then I would go through the curtain, and I would see that Robin was back there, and then I would have to go back out and introduce him if it was tag team, or Argus would come out and introduce him. So now I'm in Rocky trunks. My pants are on stage with my wallet in it, and all my props and my shoes and everything's on stage. So I got to stand in the back for a half an hour now while Robin's on stage doing another set, and the show goes longer. But it was so great because he would pick up my props and he would use them. He would like, he'd step around and everything would wind up at his penis. You know what I mean? Like, this, or a wig or whatever. So that was always kind of fun, to see that. And then Eddie Murphy at the height of his career sometimes would go on and, man, what the f is this shit all over on the so that was pretty cool. But then this was really exciting. When I became a headliner and Mitzi was giving me these spots, she's like, "We're opening in Vegas. We're going to Vegas. We're going to be at the Dunes Hotel, right? You're going to go. You're going to be there. You're going to headline. But we don't know if you could use your music because remember, there was no taped music. It was bands. It was an orchestra. So if somebody wanted a song, it had to be a singer or a band playing it because of the music union. But there were a couple of hotels that were trying to pass the law where they could use taped music. I think the Riviera might have been one because they had Splash and they wanted to go to tape. There was certain production shows that want to go to tape. So up until the day before, they finally closed the deal because they were striking. The musicians were out there striking the hotels. So I was allowed to use music, which was great because Mitzi had like 10 acts that used tape music or singing impressionists.
And how many weeks into it opening were you the headliner?
I was there the first week. I still
you
have
were the headliner the first week.
I was there the first week, and it.
Harry, you'd only been on stage maybe.
I had 20 minutes. I had 25 minutes. That was it. That I had.
How do you headline with 20 minutes?
Well, she didn't. There were 5 comics, so everyone was doing like 15 minutes.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So it was like perfect for me, and my music was on cassette tapes, and then sometimes I would have to cue them up with a pencil because I had a magic marker. And so I'm on the show with Louis Anderson, Argus Hamilton, Blake Clark, Andrew Dice Clay, and then special guests were Jim Carrey, and because he was opening for Rodney over at Caesars, and Paul Rodriguez came to town and jumped up too.
Oh.
And then I'm closing the show. So I have a magazine cover that says Band of Unknown Zanies Invade the Dunes, May 4th, 1984. I was 24 years, this was my birthday, May 4th. So I was 24 years old. And Mitzi kept me for 3 weeks, And it was like, $2,500 a week. That was a lot of money for me, you know, and we just stayed there. And the funny thing was Mitzi did not allow comics to bring their wives or girlfriends. So Mitzi would come up on Monday, take us all out to dinner.
Why was that?
I don't know. She was jealous or something. We would hide our wives or our girlfriends in the room, and if they were there on Monday, and then when Mitzi left, and they would come down and hang out in the green room and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because I don't know what it was, but it was just weird. I just remember Blake Clark's wife and my wife Laura. She was my girlfriend. They had to hide. And we had to go to the back pool because we know Mitzi wouldn't go out to that pool and everything like that. It's just really strange. And then eventually, you know, that changed. She just wanted us to focus on our acts.
So you're headlining.
Now I'm in
making
Vegas.
money.
Yeah, I'm in Vegas.
Now tell our audience about what it's like being a variety act and working with people like Louis who plant their feet.
Oh yeah,
and do their comedy. Was Louis?
Used to make fun of me a lot.
Louis is the nicest guy in the world. But are these comics who are monologists? Are they? On
yeah,
you?
they are. They are. Louis hid my prop bag one night when I had a big showcase. And I walked out the back door, and you know how there's that building that Rod Stewart owns next door to it was being worked on, and there was a big piece of plywood. And I was like, all right, if somebody took my bag, where could they go with it? So I went outside and just moved the plywood and found it. I don't know what made me think to look there, but that's where I would have hid something. And then I found out it was Louis, who was my best friend. Louis was my best friend, but he just wanted to fuck with me. Yeah, some guys gave you a hard time, but Mitzi liked variety acts. So the variety acts always closed. She always had like Denny Johnson or even like Finest Henderson, eventually Angel Salazar.
So now what was your first
here
big
I am.
break where you went from headliner to
APA signed me.
Marty Klein? Danny Robinson?
There was a guy named Grady Roberts, I think his name was, and he signed me, and then Danny wound up repping me for stand-up.
Now, did Mitzi get mad that now you're getting booked all over the country?
No, because I didn't go anywhere, really.
You didn't go?
I stayed, I worked for her.
So what was the point of signing with them?
TV and film.
Oh, okay. So
TV
Danny
and film.
was doing TV and film.
And an occasional date somewhere. You know what I mean?
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's your first big break outside of stand-up?
My first
or within stand-up,
break,
like in terms of working with a big star.
And I think this happened the same time with Rodney seeing me for the 9th annual Young Comedian Special. And I had a spot in the main room following Louis Anderson. Okay. And
normally Louis would have to close and follow Jim Carrey.
Well, no, Louis would always go on 30. Mitzi always put him on, like there would be a host, then maybe one other act, and then Louis.
That
was a sweet spot for him.
He told me.
What?
He told me in the beginning she used to put Jim Carrey on before him, and he has to follow Jim getting a standing ovation, and he would have this technique where he said he would go to the microphone.
I was going to do that thing with the thing, he would.
That's one thing he said, or he said he'd go to the microphone and he'd say, "One more time for Jim Carrey," and then people would applaud, and they would die down, and he'd go to the mic again, and he'd be like, "Yeah, that was incredible. One more time for Jim Carrey."
Oh,
they would make it so they would hate Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rodney sees you in the main room.
Yeah, well, this is what happened. They were casting the Young Comedian Special, the 9th annual Young Comedian Special.
And the HBO specials, for those of you who don't remember or know, every other year Rodney did it at his club Dangerfields in New York, and then the other years were other hosts and they were done other places.
Right. And I think I showcased to open for Rodney with Estelle Endler and his manager, and this is before the special. And I thought, like, this would be so cool to open
Estelle
for Rodney.
The one with the glasses?
I never met her. And I killed. I had a great set, got a standing ovation again, and I thought I'm going to get it, and I didn't get it. And Mitzi goes, "You were too strong. She's not gonna fucking book you getting standing ovations, and then, for Rodney, you were too strong. That's what happened." So I was like, okay.
Why didn't you tell you that before your show?
I didn't know. I just found that out, so then Rodney never saw me. He never saw a tape. He never saw anything. So then they were casting the Young Comedian special. So he came down and he was watching a bunch of comics, and he saw me and he put me in the special. But I couldn't do all the music because it cost a ton of money. So I could only do one bit, Risky Business. I was doing Tom Cruise in Risky Business in my underwear with the sunglasses, old time rock and roll. So they paid for the sync rights, but Rex Meredith sang like Bob Seger, and Michael Becker, the piano player, played it on the piano. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. And they recorded it. So I used that version. And then I did this Excalibur bit where I pulled a sword out of a lady's groin, like instead of the sword in the stone and the sword in the groin. And that's all I basically did on the Dangerfield special. It was a short little stint.
So you couldn't be as great as
I couldn't do that, the whole act.
Did you feel like you didn't do as well as you normally do?
I knew that I didn't go over the way I would normally go over, and that the big breakouts from that special were Bob Nelson and Sam Kinison. Sam became a star from that, right? But I got recognized, when I go back to New Jersey, they'd say the Dangerfield, because that wound up being the highest rated Young Comedian special. There had been a bunch of other ones. I think Carl Reiner hosted one. I think John Candy hosted one. But this was like the highest rated because of Rodney. And then they gave Rodney one every year after that, where he put Dyson one and Schimmel and Hicks, and all those specials were just huge, right? So I did that, and then one night I follow Louis, and I have a killer set, and Argus comes running up to me. I'm in my Rocky trunks. I have professional Rocky trunks. I bought them. They weren't the ones that I hand sewn. I wound up getting from a boxing store. I didn't realize you can go and there's like the Rocky trunks. And Argus comes and gets me and says, "Somebody wants to meet you out front." And I go out in the street, and I meet Brandon Tartikoff.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Brandon Tartikoff was the youngest television president in history at NBC, and he was one of the things he did that was memorable in my life, because he was a friend of mine, Peter Engel. He was the first one to greenlight Saved by the Bell, and which created Saturday morning television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was the head of NBC during the Seinfeld and maybe even Taxi and Cheers and all those shows. Yeah, all those shows. So he goes, "It's the president of NBC. He wants to meet you." So I go out in the street, and I'm in my Rocky trunks. He says to me, he's laughing. He goes, "You're the funniest comedian I've seen since Steve Martin," right? And I was like, "Whoa, my God." And he goes, "I want to do something with you." And he goes, "Who are you with?" And I said, "I'm with APA." And he goes, "I'm going to do something with you." And I'm like, "Wow, this is so cool." So the next day, they get a call from Joel Thurm, and Brandon wants Harry. Don't think you're going to get a lot of money, because Brandon saw Harry, we're not giving away development deals like we used to.
And Joel Thurm was a legendary director of development, casting director.
Yeah. So basically, Brandon wanted me for Saturday Night Live. What's his name? Lorne Michaels was back on. Remember how he was
he took
off
from 1980 to 84 off.
So the year that I was up for it was the year that they had Anthony Michael Hall and Robert Downey Jr. and Lovitz and Randy Quaid, that cast. It was that year. So, but in the meantime, I'm going up for stuff. They're putting me in an episode of Facts of Life.
But you've never acted before.
No.
So how did you know how to act?
I would audition. I would get, but I did act in high school. I was in plays. I did The Odd Couple. I did.
Was it hard going to the sound stage after doing plays, and did you know what you were doing, or?
I kind of learned. Well, it was funny. My first thing that I got my SAG card was the Buffalo Bill show, and it was an episode where they had the TV show was like a small local TV show, the storyline, in like upstate New York, and he was really cynical and mean, Dabney Coleman. And the studio was overrun because it was Jerry Lewis lookalike day. So there were all these Jerry Lewises. And I used to do Jerry Lewis in my act, so I got cast because of that. And I was Telethon Jerry, and I'm in the tuxedo and the whole Jerry Lewis, the pompous, with the cigarette lighter and Schmoyman and all that. And Jim Carrey was a Jerry Lewis speaking. So we were the two speaking Jerry Lewises. And they rigged me with a cigarette lighter with a flame that went this high. And SAG would have went nuts knowing that they're having me do the stunt. And they waited till the end of the day to do it. It was the last shot of the day where I go like this, and the flame is this high and it sets fire to the set. And then it cuts to like firemen leaving and, because of the Jerry Lewis. So I got my SAG card playing Jerry Lewis, who was my idol, and then I did a Facts of Life. And then one day I get a call from Brandon Tartiko's office, and they said, Harry, Brandon wants you to come. Do you have black pants and black shoes? And I said, yeah, come to NBC at 5:30. All right, Brandon needs your help with something. So I go, and it's Brandon Tartikoff's got a video camera, this gigantic video camera. He says, it's Grant Tinker's birthday, and I'm shooting a video, and I want you to be an NBC page giving a tour to Japanese tourists. They had all these extras, and then one of them is going to ask you, who's the president of NBC? And I'm going to say Grant Tinker, and they go, where does he live? Can we see his house? And we went to his house, and we got let in, and we shot all this funny stuff of me giving a tour. And it's basically Brandon just improvising, because I have no idea who Grant Tinker is, so he's telling me all these bits and gags that we have to do. And then at the very end of this little video, which only got seen, I never saw what I did. It was at this party that Johnny Carson was at and all these other people. And at the end of it, this closet opens and Nell Carter comes out with a vacuum singing NBC, Let's All Be There. And then Brandon says to me, oh, this is Nell. The showrunners of her show are going to write a spinoff to be your series. So that was my pilot. Wow. Was the spinoff of that show, which was really corny. And they found out that I was Greek, and they made it about a Greek restaurant, and I was pitching a video store. And how about
you did shoot the pilot?
We shot the pilot. It airs. I think I just got to check.
It did air?
It aired as an episode.
Really?
Yeah, it aired as an episode. Brian Backer is in it from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the nerdy guy. He plays my best friend. And it's a Greek restaurant. And, I had this character actor who played my father. It didn't get picked up. It just got aired as an episode. And that was their way of not paying me for the pilot, because they gave me another pilot, a spinoff of Family Ties with Nick, Mallory's boyfriend, Scott Valentine, and Herschel Bernardi played our grandfather, and we shot that pilot and thought that was going to be picked up, but Herschel Bernardi died, and he was like the star of the series, the patriarch of the series.
Social media is important. You see comics blowing up all the time and selling out shows all over the country because of it, but you have no idea how they're doing it. Well, what if you could have someone who's done it before guiding you every single step of the way? My name is Braden Cody, and over the past 4 years, I've worked with some of the biggest comedians in the world, making viral content for them every single day that's accumulated over 1 billion views. And now I want to help you be the next comic to make a career for themselves on social media. That's why me and Barry created the Social Media Blueprint. It is the only social media program designed specifically for comedians. We have a full course with detailed tutorials, downloadable templates, and weekly calls with me and Barry, where we'll give you personalized guidance and advice to get you in front of the audience we both know you deserve. If you don't take this opportunity to take your career to the next level, someone else will. So click the link in the description to join the Social Media Blueprint today.
I'm with APA, and nobody gives me any guidance. And I was bummed because I wish I had a manager.
They didn't have anybody on Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, but nobody said to me, Harry, when you go and showcase for Lorne Michaels, don't do the music, do your impressions. Show them that you do impressions, right? Mm-hmm. So I could get the next step, which would be going in and doing a taped segment.
Why do you think that you didn't have a manager at the time?
You know what? Brad Gray wanted to represent me. And I think it was Danny, because I gave Danny a hard time about this, said, we don't think you need a manager right now.
And
And I know that if I had gone and took the meeting, I would have been flattered by him. And at the time, he had Saget, Coulier,
Yeah.
and Shandling, I think.
And a lot of times, just so the audience knows, a lot of agents don't want you to hire a manager sometimes because they feel like, it puts them in danger, and vice versa. Some managers don't want you to hire an agent.
Yeah, yeah. And that was always one thing that I regretted. Well, two things. The Saturday Night Live that I fucked up was turning down going just for a meeting with Brad Gray, because I know I would have been flattered and I would have said yes.
Did you ever have a manager?
I never had a manager. No, never had a manager. And
did you ever do an hour special?
No. What it would have been the best of John Williams. It would have cost a fortune. All the music.
They're sound-alike music.
Yeah, I know. But it's like even years later, Rodney offered to pay for all the music for my show, and it was going to be like $60,000 or something like that, just for the
so
snippets.
Why didn't you do it?
I fucked up with that. This is before we were really close.
So
I didn't play his club.
So how did you become close to Rodney, and how did you end up writing for him?
Well, first
directing
SNL.
for him?
I blew the audition for SNL. I just wanted to kill, and I just did the music. And I didn't do any impressions or anything like that. So Lorne Michaels and Franken and Davis were like, what? We saw Francis, because what's his name? Brandon saw me do the act. He saw me do a half hour. So he saw me do all the bits. And that's what made him think about me for Saturday Night Live. I was stupid and I blew the...
Who got it that year?
What? That's the year that they had all those actors.
No, but who got it? From those tests, wasn't Anthony Michael Hall already there?
No, those guys were all cast.
Okay.
I would have been cast with that group.
So you didn't belong with that group because they were all young kids.
Yeah, but I think Lovitz was on the show, and so was Dennis Miller, and they stayed. And everyone else they dropped. All the actors were gone, and those guys, those are the two that they kept.
So take us through how you met Rodney and how you created an undeniable relationship with him.
So I did this special with Rodney, and he was really nice. And it's the first time I saw his balls, which everybody gets to see them. Rodney would wear a bathrobe with no underwear. And I think Jim Carrey said it looked like the bottom of a grandfather clock when you were in Rodney's presence. So I remember I'm in his dressing room, because he took each one of us in groups. So it was Yakov Smirnoff, myself, and Louis, and we're in there and we're talking. Man, this is going to be great. You guys are going to be terrific. Blah blah blah. Right? And after the taping, and everyone knew Sam's going to be a star, and so is Bob Saget. Bob Nelson. Rodney goes to me, "Hey man, you're really funny. Have you ever done any acting?" Right? And I said, "Oh, I've done a couple pilots and this and that." And he goes, "Well, man, I'm doing this movie where I go back to school and I have a son, and you might be right to play my son. It's not up to me, but it's up to the director. You know what I mean? It's up to the director, but man, you go up for it, okay?" So I'm reading for back to school to be his son, Jason, and I read. They put me on film, like a screen test kind of a thing. And I didn't get it. I even had to take my shirt off to show what I would look like in a bathing suit, because remember, he was a diver and all that. So I was bummed I didn't get it. But the same week that I didn't get that, Louis Anderson and Paul Rodriguez recommend me to the casting director, Penny DuPont, who did a movie that they were in called Quicksilver with Kevin Bacon, a bicycle movie. And she was casting a movie called Peggy Sue Got Married that Francis Ford Coppola was directing. And they needed people to be Nicolas Cage's buddies and in his group. So they recommend me to Fred Roos, who's a legend. He put the cast together for The Outsiders. And I went in and I met with him. And I said, "I'm a stand-up. I'm performing at the Comedy Store on Saturday night." He goes, "What time?" And he came down to see me. I was shocked that he came. And then the next day I got a call to go meet with the producer of the movie, and I got cast in Peggy Sue Got Married. So my first movie is Francis Ford Coppola with Kathleen Turner, Nick Cage, me and Jim Carrey, who's my buddy. We're in Nick Cage's band together. Jim and I had rooms next to each other with the adjoining doors that were always open while we shot that movie in Santa Rosa. So this is like, now I had to pay for SAG. You know how you get Taft-Hartley for the Jerry Lewis thing?
Yeah, Taft-Hartley is when you aren't a member of SAG and the money you have coming in gets taken out to go into the union fees.
So I joined SAG because of my idol, Jerry Lewis, and now my favorite director and my favorite movie of all time, which is The Godfather, I get to work with Coppola.
Incredible.
I have some home movies from that Super 8 sound. I moved up to sound, and Coppola was making fun of me because he had a video camera. He had that same video camera that they used in Back to the Future, remember? That was a prop. He was shooting our rehearsals, and he's like, you got to get video. And I'm like, Super 8 sound. So I have like 4 reels from the movie behind the scenes with like the actors and his daughter, Sophia, that was in the movie. So, you know, that was my acting days. You know what I mean? That was it. You know, it never really went beyond that. I did a couple of pilots. They didn't get picked up. My wife says, you were a horrible actor. I'm like, thank you so much. But, you know, I had a couple of pilots and did a couple of little movies, and that was it. But I always wanted to work behind the cameras. I always wanted to be a director.
1, 2,
3, 4, 5, 6.
6 degrees of separation.
Okay, 6 degrees of separation. I'm going to mention some names, some things, and just a short little something on each one of them, if you might do that for me. Owning the Laugh Factory Theater in Covina.
Oh, wow. That's, well, I say that Ozark, the TV show Ozark, comes to mind because my wife Laura and I feel like Marty and Wendy Bird in Ozark. We went to this little town. Now, I'm not saying that it's like that, you know, like we're laundering money for the Covina cartel, but we went to this little area and took over this theater, this beautiful theater. It became a Laugh Factory, and we run it. You know, we're the part owners and operators.
With Jamie Masada.
Yeah, with Jamie Masada and another partner, Joseph Murray. And it's a great little theater, and the city loves us. We're like an anchor tenant. And our bread and butter is Latino comics. I mean, we've given a lot
I was
of
there with Andy Huggins. He was the whitest guy I know, and he did pretty well.
He sold pretty well, yeah. He sold well, yeah. But every week, every other week, it's like, you know, I mean, Paul Rodriguez has headlined there like maybe 20 times since we opened. Concrete sells out every time. We've got Carlos Mencia coming in for his 3rd time. Valentine's Day weekend.
It's a beautiful little theater. It looks like a 1,500 seat theater, but it's only like 175 seats.
And it looks like the Ford Theater with box seats and stuff like that.
It's beautiful.
It's really great. We love it. Yeah.
Gary Shandling.
I met. I wasn't buddies with Gary Shandling, but he was my favorite comic. I loved watching him. Just loved watching him when he would go up with that piece of paper and do his act and how's my hair and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And he was really nice. And I did get to audition for his first series. And when I went in, Jack Burns was a writer on the show from Burns and Schreiber.
Wow.
And that was the first comedy album that I wound up hearing because my buddy bought it. And we did the Reverend Moley sketch in the high school talent show. And I would always listen to it when I went over to my friend's house. And I was just going on and on about how much I loved him and loved him on the Andy Griffith show. And Gary was kind of jealous because Jack Burns was like going like this to me. And I was wondering, why is it don't? So I think you weren't allowed to compliment him in front of Shandling because then Shandling just kind of tore him apart.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Rita Rudner.
I didn't really know her. I was a big fan, but she was on that Rodney special. So was Carol Leifer. And unfortunately, she got cut out of it because it was just too long. He gave so much time to Sam.
I remember, but he brought her back to another special with Lenny Clark and with Dice.
Right.
Because I remember the joke, if I'm not mistaken, my favorite She said, when I ride the bus, I know how to keep the seat open next to me. When somebody walks by and says, excuse me, is anybody sitting there? I look up and I say, no one except the Lord. All
That's
right.
funny. No, she was great, and Rita was great. So funny, just such a great writer in her delivery.
Liza Minnelli.
Okay, so that's the biggest star besides Rodney that I ever opened for, and she saw me on Entertainment Tonight. They had a segment called Rising Star that Mary Hart did. So they saw me at the Comedy Store, and they filmed my act, played the music and everything, and all of a sudden, my agents get a call. Liza Minnelli wants you to open for her at the Riviera in Las Vegas and in Atlantic City. So that was really cool, and I went out to Atlantic City, opened for her, and my mom and my grandmother, Yaya, who had never seen me live before, comes to see me. She could barely speak English, and we said, this is Judy Garland's daughter, you know what I mean? The Wizard of Oz, and then I went to open for her in Vegas, and then I found out why I was booked to open for her, and she made a pass at me.
Wow.
And in a limo, and my wife Laura was there, and everyone that worked for her was gay. You know what I mean? There was no pretty girls that worked for her, right?
Did Laura say, let her touch it?
And Laura was really beautiful, really adorable and beautiful, and so we're opening for her. It was in the showroom where they had Splash, so I'm using the dressing room that was the CLX dressing room. It was outside. I had to go outside. I was like, why does my dressing room smell like fish? They go, oh, that's usually the CLX, right? So that night after the show, we're gonna go see Frank Sinatra Jr. Over at the Four Queens, and then we're gonna go to Gianni Russo's place. She pulls me into a limo with Pappy, her conductor. And he's sitting across, I'm sitting next to her, and we're talking, and I'm looking back like, oh, don't worry, she's going to go in another car. And she leaned in to kiss me and put her hand on my thigh, and I went, ugh. I actually verbally said, and pulled away from her. And then she kind of sat forward like this.
You get fired?
Well, I never opened for her again. And then at the restaurant at Gianni Russo's place, I didn't even tell Laura. I didn't know how to tell Laura. We're sitting there, and she's looking over at us with Gianni Russo and keeps whispering to him. And Gianni Russo was in The Godfather. He's Carlo, the one who got strangled. And he had just killed somebody, self-defense, in his bar like 2 weeks earlier because the guy came at him with a broken bottle or a knife or something like that. But I had found out later on, the Funny Boys even told me that they came on to her.
Schmocken Valley.
Yeah. I think it was Jim said that she came on to him. And then, of course, you found out later on that she forced her limo driver and, but I was really cute back then.
Wow.
And now,
you're cute now, my friend.
If I think about it, I thought she was really sexy in whatchamacallit. But then cut to 2 years later, she's in Hawaii, and she walks into my in-laws' store at the Hyatt, Waikoloa, where they had the dolphins. My mother-in-law had this beautiful clothing store, and Liza's performing there, and she's walking through the store, and my mother-in-law goes, oh, my son-in-law worked with you. Oh, who's that? And she goes, Harry Basil. And Liza just turned around and walked out. Didn't say anything. And then a year later, David Copperfield invites me to come see his show. Okay. And I'm sitting in the audience with my sister and my brother-in-law. And he introduces a celebrity in the audience. And in the booth in front of us, he goes, Academy Award winner, Tony winner, Liza Minnelli. So she stands up and waves. And now I'm going, oh my God, I got to go backstage now. She's going to be back there. So we're waiting forever. And she's in his dressing room. Oh, you're terrific. You're wonderful. Blah, 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 blah. My sister and brother-in-law don't know the story, the backstory. They're like, aren't we going to go meet her? And so finally I announce myself, and she's just talking away. The security guard goes in and says, Harry Basil is here. Then all of a sudden it's quiet, murmur. and then Liza and her entourage walk out.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
Weird. Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh, I loved it. I love him. Dice was like my big brother, at the club. And after the show, we would always go to Ben Frank's, and he would give me advice on how to fuck my wife, who was my girlfriend. All right. You got a step ladder. You get a step ladder. You hang her from the chandelier. You go up. You get it hard on erection. You swing her. She comes back in. Dage, dage, dage. And then when I was the runner, I would go up to Crest Hill, which is the mansion where all the comics live. Tom Wilson, Biff, and Back to the Future, Yakov Smirnoff, and Dice. And I would go to drop something off. Basil, come in here. I'm going to show you what I'm going to open with tonight. And I would sit on the bed, and he would do like, this is what I'm going to open with. I'm going to go from Travolta into De Niro and this and that, right? And then my first time playing La Jolla, I'm with Dice, and we're on the beach in front of the comedy condo, and he's wearing denim, and I'm in a bathing suit, but he's wearing denim. Like, he goes, Basil, go over to that guy and tell him that the Dice Man told him to keep it down, otherwise he's going to have to leave the beach. So that these two guys just talking, and I go over to them, and because this is what I would do, because he would tell me what to do, and I would do it because he's Dice. I go, excuse me, gentlemen, and they go, yeah. That's the Dice Man over there. They look over him. He goes like this. He said, if you don't keep it down, we're going to have to ask you to leave the beach. They look over at him, and he's just going like this. And it was great, working with him all those years and having him play, the Laugh Factory in Covina. He came out in Covina and did us a favor and did it twice.
Wow.
And I love him. I think he's so talented, and he's a great actor, and I think he's funnier than he's ever been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The late Sam Kinison.
Oh my God. It was so great staying in the club when I started out, my wife Laura and I, and we loved Sam, and we would watch Paul Mooney kill and clear some of the room, and then Kennison would go on after him, and all the comics would stay and just watch this guy be brilliant, performing for like 20 people.
I used to love go see him when he took the mic out of the stand and threw the mic stand.
Yeah.
And I would go so many late nights to see
There was
him.
a bin of broken microphones of Sam doing like Jesus getting nailed to the cross, and we cast him in Ladybugs, Rodney Dangerfield movie that I did, and Rodney put him in an HBO special, and Sam didn't show up for the HBO special. Sometimes he would be drunk or passed out and wouldn't wake up, and Rodney was really upset, and Sam was embarrassed and wouldn't return Rodney's calls. This is pre-cell phones, right? Rodney still wanted him to be in Ladybugs. He was going to be the opposing coach in the big game. Blake Clark wound up playing the part. And if Sam had done the movie, right, we would have been on the press junket in New York City for Ladybugs when Sam died in the car accident.
Wow.
And then Rodney was doing the Tonight Show to plug Ladybugs, and we went to Forest Lawn to his memorial right afterwards, and we're staring down at Sam's body right after Rodney just killed. First time on the Tonight Show in 10 years because he had a falling out with Johnny, and we're standing over Sam's body, and Rodney was like, man, it just looks like he's sleeping, man. I don't believe it. It's just weird.
Incredible. Last thing about this cycle here. Writing and directing what I consider to be one of the Mount Rushmores of comedy, Rodney Dangerfield.
It was amazing. Rodney opened up so many doors for me as a stand-up, but then we wrote these movies together, and Rodney had no patience, okay? And there were people that were interested in making the movie, but man, you got to fucking wait forever, man, this and that. You know what, man? I'm going to fucking finance it myself, okay? So the first one was Meet Wally Sparks. He put $6 million into it, right? And he used to say, man, if I lose it, it won't affect my lifestyle one bit, okay? And we hired Peter Baldwin to direct it. Leslie Greif produced it. We wound up selling it to Trimark, so he got his money back, and they released it on 1,500 screens, Meet Wally Sparks, which is kind of like The Man Who Came to Dinner. That was my idea. I saw that movie. I saw Leonard Maltin talk about The Man Who Came to Dinner, and I was like, this is a perfect vehicle for Rodney. And I pitched it to Al Ruddy and Andre Morgan. And Al Ruddy, who produced The Godfather, $1 Million Baby, he said, Harry, you could just call it your own thing, call it Meet Wally Sparks or whatever, And so we wound up making the movie with Leslie Greif. Rodney financed it. He was hysterical in it. It came out in theaters the day they re-released Star Wars back in theaters in 92. So we got annihilated at the box office. All the other movies that were going to come out opposite the next 2 Star Wars movies, they all pulled them because everybody went out. And then I wound up doing 2 other ones with him, and he financed them. He just didn't have the patience. So Rodney, I joined the Writers Guild because of Rodney. I joined the Directors Guild because of Rodney. And it was just so much fun putting comedians on all of our movies.
Amazing.
Charlie Fleischer, who I think is waiting, was in my first movie that I directed, The Fourth Tenor. It's an opera comedy, and he played Rodney's best friend in it. And Charlie was great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Your proudest moment in show business?
My proudest moment in show business, I guess it was the premiere of The Fourth Tenor. This Rodney opera comedy, and we got a great review in Variety, and we had a wonderful premiere, and I don't know, it was just really cool because I always wanted to be a director, and I finally directed a feature film shot on film with Rodney Dangerfield in it, and a whole bunch of Italian actors, Richard Libertini and Robert Davi and Argentina Brunetta, who played Mrs. Martini in It's a Wonderful Life. And it was just a wonderful little movie that I got to make. And it was Rodney's, it was his, what would you say, his final movie that he really wanted to do. And he sang in it, and it was just really, really great. Just to have been able to do that.
Your biggest disappointment in show business and how you used it to fuel yourself to the next level?
I think I already talked about it. Like just you have some regrets, like, wow, why didn't I do that? Like why I blew that Saturday Night Live audition, or I should have gotten Brad Gray as my agent. As my manager, or just little things like that. But otherwise, no real regrets. I'm very happy owning a comedy club and getting to book my friends and meet great comedians. And I do miss production. I do. I'm still writing some stuff. I would love to get, but it's not like they're hiring 60-year-old
and
directors
finance
today.
And direct your own pilot too.
I could. Sidney Furie told me that. Who was my mentor. Legendary director, Lady Sings the Blues and Superman 4. He said, finance your own movie. Go make your own movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. It's kind of a 2-parter because you've done so many things. What advice would you have for the young person growing up in a small town where the dad leaves or whatever, and you just have to figure things out on your own, but also not just to get what you want in comedy, but also to figure out how to navigate and get in front of the people who are ahead of you, who can help you, and not just that, but then moving forward in areas where you actually deliver for them, where they want to hire you again and again and again.
Shit, my parking expired.
Don't worry. Well, I'll pay the parking ticket.
I was going to say,
if you get a parking ticket,
I was going to pick up my phone and say that this can make you famous. You can shoot your own content. You could make funny videos and go viral, like Trevor Wallace or King Batch or Concrete, and then become a stand-up. Learn how to become a stand-up. Make a movie. Just create. There's so many outlets. There's film festivals today. The internet is just amazing for that. Whether you want to be a writer or a director, make little movies and enter film contests and write. Just keep writing, read good scripts and learn how to write a script. And then stand up, work on material and think about what's going to make you unique, you know what I mean? Different from everybody else, and get as much stage time as you can. and again, you could use this to create your own content. If you want to be famous or just have a great career and work steady as a comic, there's so many clubs, cruise ships, colleges. There's so many outlets to make money and just grow. You know what I mean? I'm proud that I always would find something else that I can do. All right, if I'm not going to make it or be famous as a comic and make that amazing headliner money, or get on a sitcom, do something behind the scenes. And I got to write a few films. After making comedies with Rodney, I directed a number of horror movies for a while. So there was this 5-7 year span where I was just making 2 or 3 movies a year. And then the opportunity came to open up clubs. And, I think I'm pretty good at it. And as a booker, I don't know if I had to one day even become an entertainment director at a casino, I could probably do that too, but, I'm enjoying it. And I'm a grandfather now. I have a beautiful grandson, Roman, and it's just the greatest.
Incredible. You
Yeah.
had an incredible life, incredible career.
Well, thank
you're
you.
a legend.
Hopefully that I'm not one of
And-
these guys that dies in the next couple of weeks and you go,
No.
I've got this.
God, look, it looks like he's just sleeping there.
Yeah.
It was great to have you here. Thank you
Aw,
so
man.
much for doing this.
You know what, Barry? I've always heard about you, but we've only kind of became friends the last couple of years, and it's fun working with you. I love the clients that you pitched to me, and this was a lot of fun. And I hope I wasn't a bore.
You're the best.
All right, thank you.
you.